the world is undergoing rapid global changes and challenges. And I think the first change or channel that we must address is economic shifts. The state of the global economy is strenuous, to say the least. And unfortunately, sectors like health and education take a back seat when the global economy is strenuous and suffering at times. But interestingly, Ms. Malu, about 2 years ago, I believe, the DRC introduced free primary education policy. Now, this policy gives 6 years of free education to students. And the aim was to ensure that children, especially those from low-income families and communities, have access to basic education. So, given the tough economic conditions that the world is facing now, and for quite some time, my first question that I wanted to ask you is, have you felt that it has become difficult to sustain this policy, or have you seen that the benefits of it are superseding the difficult economic situation that the globe is facing?
Okay. Je vous remercie pour la question. Il faut savoir que dans le cadre, au niveau de la République démocratique du Congo, le challenge est encore plus grand parce que vous savez que nous sommes victimes d'une guerre au niveau de l'Est de la RDC. Et donc, évidemment, maintenir la gratuité de l'enseignement primaire va bien au-delà qu'un aspect budgétaire, évidemment. Parce que sans paix, il n'est pas possible de continuer d'assurer l'éducation. Et donc nous avons de milliers d'enfants au niveau de l'Est de la RDC dont l'éducation est compromise du fait de cette situation de guerre. Mais donc justement, les crises comme celle-là et la situation globale, notamment de l'économie, nous rappellent en fait que ne pas investir dans l'éducation serait la pire des décisions que l'on pourrait avoir. C'est justement maintenant qu'il faut investir plus dans l'éducation. Mais investir dans l'éducation, ce n'est pas seulement une question d'investir en termes d'argent. C'est également investir en termes d'attention et investir en termes de temps. Et il s'agit du temps, notamment, que pour pouvoir maintenir la paix, c'est du temps également que pour justement organiser l'ensemble du système. Donc pour nous, le challenge est effectivement important pour maintenir la gratuité de l'enseignement primaire, mais cela reste une priorité du gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo, quoi qu'il arrive, de continuer à investir dans l'éducation, parce qu'investir dans l'éducation, c'est investir dans le futur et s'assurer que l'on ait un monde meilleur, en tout cas une nation meilleure plus tard, quoi. Donc, malgré les challenges, nous maintenons et nous maintiendrons notre investissement dans l'éducation et en particulier dans l'enseignement primaire.
Very interesting, and there's a bit of an issue with the translation, but I think that the lesson learned that we can understand from your answer is that it is a big challenge, but it is very beneficial, and you are seeking to continue as well. My next question was to you, Mr. Grima. So, according to European Commission reports, Malta dedicates considerable expenditure to education. It's actually higher than the European average. However, there have been calls in Malta to reevaluate the education system to improve the achievement level of students. What transformations are your ministry planning or doing to make sure the education system in the country is still relevant and effective?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, it's not an expense, it's an investment. And as a country, we have been investing steadily, as you rightly stated and pointed out, above the European average, in order to ensure that we have an educational system which gives the opportunities to our children in order to be able to achieve in their life. This can only be done by giving the necessary tools to educators, whom we consider as a very important part of our educational system, in order to be able to help the children achieve their full development, their full potential. Because one of the issues that globally I tend to point out is the fact that educational systems tend to be reactive. They have to be proactive.
Yes.
They have to understand that whilst we are not producing workers, we have to produce human beings with the appropriate skills. And I said this not as a minister, but as a father. What do I want for my children? What skills and opportunities do I want for my children? And in fact, as a country, we have embarked in a public consultation process whereby we actually launched the National Educational Strategy, which is the work of hundreds of meetings with different stakeholders, ranging from professionals working in the field, families with children attending our free educational system, students themselves, and even the industrial partners. And this led to a simple conclusion. We have to always put the person at the center of our educational system. Therefore, as you rightly pointed out, there's the investment, the financial investment in the sector. But above all that, we want to ensure, for example, accessibility for all. And speak about accessibility, that doesn't mean that you have just to accomplish the fact that the child is attending school. But what about the support he receives at home? Mm-hmm. What about the access to technology that he has? And as such, we are working hand in hand across a very wide-ranging sector in order to ensure that there's collaboration with different partners, with different stakeholders, in order to give these skills to our children. I must state also that there is the knowledge in our country. We are a very small country. A very small country with one irreplaceable resources, the human resource. Mm. And we want to give our children the best education possible. And in order to do that, we must ensure that there's collaboration between different sectors. And I'm very proud to say that you mentioned free education. In our country, we have the free childcare for each and every family. We have free education for all the students, including university students. We actually give incentives in order to ensure that our student population is always one of the highest across board. We also have invested heavily in order to ensure that we fight early school leaving percentages, which have dropped down considerably in the past years. All this because we believe that education is the key in order to ensure that we have a better society, in order to ensure that our children are prepared. Obviously, we cannot expect to know, for sure at least, what jobs, what professions, what careers our children will have in the future. But we have the obligation, despite being ourselves a product of our past, to equip our kids with the necessary skills.
For sure, and we're going to discuss technology and future jobs for sure, but Mr. Shermatov, I wanted to move to you, and I've just read very recently that the president of Uzbekistan last June said that there's a noticeable disconnect between the educational background of engineering graduates and the requirements of the job market. He said, the president of Uzbekistan, and I really respect that he brought this issue up, he said 60% of engineering graduates not working in their trained fields because a significant portion of the courses offered do not align with the needs of manufacturers and the current workplace. And one of the ways he proposed to address this issue is promoting closer cooperation between universities and regional industries and updating the curriculums. Can you tell us more about the details of this strategy to make sure that your education system keeps up with workforce demands?
Thank you very much. This is an interesting challenge, and specifically in the digital education, because as you know, digital technologies is rapidly evolving, and the change for the skill sets and demands is increasing very rapidly, whereas education system is not able to keep up all the time. So for the case of Uzbekistan, we have ambitious goal to make Uzbekistan an IT hub, so that for IT companies, they are able to find the affordable talents in Uzbekistan. We have young and growing population, and we've been doing comprehensive education reform at all levels. We have increased access to preschool education, so that when we started in 2017 under the leadership of President Mirziyoyev about changes in the education, the access to preschool was very limited. Now, almost all parents have the access to preschool education. As you know, early investment is crucial for education. And then we connected all the schools with high-speed internet. We improved the overall capacity building of our teachers in terms of teaching the foreign languages as well as the information technologies, and we increased the access to higher university from, it was just 9%, now almost all the graduates of schools are able to, if they are willing, they can continue to education. But still, we had this dilemma. And we also had so many private education companies. We have in our IT park around 500 private IT educational companies working as a member of our IT park. And at the same time, we have more than 800 IT outsourcing exporting companies. So IT outsourcing exporting companies, they are asking for talent pool, whereas all these 500 training companies, they say, oh, we have so many graduates. So there is some mismatch. So we had a presidential decree recently, which is kind of matching. So for those training companies, if they graduate, their graduates will be successfully employed by IT outsourcing companies, we will be compensating for every graduate, depending on their 6-month salary level, up to 2,000 USD or up to 3,000 if he or she is disabled. So that now all these training companies are learning, are trying to cooperate with these IT outsourcing companies and trying to learn what are the skill sets demanded in that and what are the requirements. And secondly,
and you integrate them in the curriculum as well.
So that they will be integrating based on the real market demand.
Okay.
And this is giving a lot of impetus in terms of better quality of the graduates of those educational entities.
Amazing, and it's really good to hear. Let me move to Ms. Malu very quickly. So correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the main goal for the education system in any country is for it to be cheap or free, if we can, but let's say cheap, and accessible for all. What role do you see the private and public sector playing in shaping proper education systems and making it low cost and more accessible?
Alors effectivement, les gouvernements ne peuvent pas eux seuls finalement prendre la charge de l'éducation et on a absolument besoin de partenariats public-privé et donc notamment de collaborer plus avec le secteur privé. Dans notre cas en RDC, on a justement impliqué le secteur privé pour développer nos nouveaux programmes, les curricula, notamment dans les domaines techniques, donc professionnels et techniques, donc par rapport vraiment à développer la main-d'œuvre dans les secteurs qui sont chez nous prioritaires, qui sont les mines, l'agriculture ou les travaux publics par exemple. Donc il y a cette implication du secteur privé à ce niveau-là. De la même manière, si on veut donner accès à toute la population, il faut collaborer avec notamment les télécoms pour qu'ils s'assurent qu'on puisse avoir accès par exemple à Internet le moins cher possible, voire gratuitement. Et donc il y a une collaboration à faire avec ce type de service. Tout comme si on veut offrir des ordinateurs, des tablettes, ce genre de matériel, le gouvernement seul a besoin en fait d'avoir ce type de partenariat de manière à donner accès à toute la population. Donc vraiment, l'éducation aujourd'hui n'est pas que l'affaire du gouvernement et nécessite absolument que l'on puisse travailler avec le secteur privé pour s'assurer que ceux qui sortent de notre système éducatif répondent évidemment à leurs besoins, que la main-d'œuvre soit qualifiée, mais aussi pour donner accès à l'éducation au maximum de personnes. Donc c'est vraiment la voie à suivre pour les gouvernements de renforcer le partenariat public-privé dans le cadre de l'éducation.
Very interesting. So also talking about cooperating between all sectors to make sure that this disconnect there's a bridge built between this disconnect. And I'll say I'm not wearing my translation, and I have to say that I'm very glad that in our education system in Egypt, when I was in school a long time ago, we had a very good French teacher, and that's why I can understand what's being said now. And it's all a cycle. It all goes back to that. Thank you for your answer. Mr. Grima, I was checking the ministry's website. I studied you guys a lot. And one thing that stood out to me is the objective written on the homepage, which is to provide present and future generations with the necessary skills and talent for employability. Employability is key. Why are we getting an education? And I was just having a debate with someone. For me, the key is in employability in the 21st century and beyond. And I'd like to add that Malta has the highest employment rate for recent graduates in the EU. So that's very impressive. So I was interested to know, in your view, what are the essential competencies and skills required in a rapidly changing global economy and workforce in the current century and beyond that?
Yes, as you rightly pointed out, we have full employment for our graduates, in the sense that even during the graduation ceremony, when I have the honor to attend, when you speak to the newly graduates, what are you planning? I'm already in employment. It's a recurring answer. Having said that, we have to understand that the world is changing rapidly. We have to understand that opportunities, even for us as a country, are based on the fact of having the appropriate skills in our workforce. Therefore, technology, AI, and the appropriate infrastructure will be extremely important in all this. As such, from a very young age, we are starting investing heavily in the infrastructure used by our students and our educators. We have a national strategy for digital education, which looks at different components and different categories, ranging from students, educators, the general public, and all the community at large. And we also give software and hardware to our students. For example, in the 4th year of compulsory education, we give tablets to our students. Now from this year, in the 7th year of compulsory education, we are giving laptops to our students. And that's something which gives more tools to the same students in order to be better prepared for the challenges and opportunities, because in challenges there are also opportunities that the future will definitely bring to our country. This is not the only aspect that we are working. You mentioned employment. We have MCAS in Malta, which is the college which looks at the vocational aspect. And we work very much hand in hand with the industry in order to ensure that our curriculum reflects what is needed in today's world.
Yeah.
We understand that the past was a solid basis on which we could build, but right now we are also working continuously in order to ensure that our curricula, our syllabi, reflect what is really needed. I don't want to be repetitive, but again, I do believe that an educational system should not produce workers. It should produce people who have the skills and talents to adapt themselves to necessities which might arise. Because, as I told you, who am I to understand what my kid will be working in 30 years' time, 40 years' time? Who knows? The important thing is that our educational system is able to give the skills, to give the competences needed for our children in order to be a success in whichever path they choose.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very interesting because it's very similar to what the Minister of Uzbekistan was saying, is to understand what the workforce needs and adapt your curriculum in that sense. Mr. Shermatov, under your leadership, you aim to transform Uzbekistan's digital landscape. And you've recently visited local communities around your country to implement the widespread adoption of digital technologies and increase digital literacy among the youth. What sorts of programs are you implementing? And have you faced any challenges with making digital technology accessible and adoptable across the country?
First of all, we have improved the access to infrastructure. So we make internet available and affordable all over the country. And it started with connecting all the schools. So once fiber optics is connecting all the schools, it means that in all the rural areas you have the fiber optics. So then we connected all the country. Then the second, the mass education programs. Like with the UAE government, we implemented the 1 million Uzbek coders. It was on Udemy platform. Then it sparked the interest in IT education. Then we partnered with Coursera. Now, in the latest global skills report, we are #1 in the world in terms of the active online learners in the share of the workforce. And also we are compensating for the people who are trying to be educated in IT, all the education and the certification costs for IT certificates. We have the list of internationally recognized certificates. So for any private education institution, if they teach them their graduates and they get the certificate, then we fully compensate all the education and the certification costs. So the idea is to make sure that all the people of Uzbekistan have access and tools, and they are able to move forward. Of course, there are challenges as well. The main challenge is, even if you have an internet, it's not always to kind of motivate the person to learn in the internet, because if you just look at the statistics, most of the times they will be watching some entertainment movies or social media, etc. But this is the area where we try to showcase the local champions who are kind of learning and earning the good money, and they are kind of, we are trying to showcase the modern role models among the young generation.
Okay, Ms. Malu, speaking of technology, in the Democratic Republic of Congo signed a historic decree regulating distance learning for primary, secondary, and technical education. It comes at a time where there are areas with significant security challenges, and you said that this is a step forward for education, equity, and reducing territorial inequalities. What are you hoping to achieve from this decree, and what further technological integration can we expect in the DRC education system?
Alors, avec la pandémie de Covid, qui a finalement obligé tout le monde à s'adapter et aller, par exemple, vers l'enseignement à distance, dans notre système éducatif, finalement, l'enseignement à distance avec les données numériques était plus toléré, mais n'était pas considéré comme véritablement un moyen d'améliorer les apprentissages. Ici, en signant ce décret, je rends officiel finalement l'enseignement à distance, et donc il devient vraiment complémentaire à l'enseignement classique, parce que vous l'avez bien dit, le monde change, les réalités et les défis sont différents, et donc on doit imaginer l'éducation différemment, et donc pas oublier, mais disons, à travers cette éducation classique, rajouter cet enseignement, notamment avec la technologie. Mais c'est surtout aussi, quand on parle d'enseignement à distance, ce n'est pas uniquement, c'est pas Internet simplement, c'est vraiment une approche multimodale, c'est-à-dire qu'on a la radio, on a la télévision, parce que les contextes sont tellement différents dans le cas de la RDC, que l'on a des enfants qui n'ont pas accès à l'électricité, qui n'ont pas accès à la technologie, et donc ici c'était vraiment d'organiser ça, de manière à donner vraiment l'occasion à toutes les filles et les garçons, qui soient dans des situations de conflit, suite aux crises comme le changement climatique, ou dans la capitale comme Kinshasa, d'avoir accès à la meilleure éducation possible. Il faut savoir aussi, et le Premier ministre de Sierra Leone l'a rappelé, on n'aura jamais suffisamment d'enseignants ni de classes pour occuper tous nos enfants, et donc en organisant l'enseignement à distance, c'est donner l'occasion de pouvoir avoir accès aux meilleurs professeurs, où qu'ils se trouvent, sans être limités par l'espace et le temps. Et donc ce nouveau décret va vraiment permettre d'améliorer l'accès à une éducation de qualité en RDC, et donc de changer la donne pour le pays et le continent en général.
Amazing, yeah, and it's a great start, I think. We're a bit running out of time, but I have one more question for Malta and Uzbekistan, Mr. Grima. The Ministry of Malta is not just of education, but it's also of youth, research, and innovation. It's written on the ministry's official name. So that suggests, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have a focus on technology-driven and innovation-driven education. So my question is, why add those three areas specifically to the ministry's responsibilities, and what are the best practices for ensuring equitable access to this innovation-driven technology?
If we really do believe that in the world there should be a distinction between two categories of educational system. Most of the time we speak about formal education and informal education. For me, personally, the distinction should only be between good education or bad education. With the good education being those aspects of the educational system that gives you the necessary skills I mentioned. I don't want to be repetitive, but this is crucial if we really want to make a change, if we really want to be future-proof in our educational system. And obviously, mentioning an ever-evolving society, rapid changes on a global level, research, innovation, technology are also an integral part of the educational path that our children need to be exposed to. Previously, I mentioned the skills that we want to give our children, the infrastructure in our schools. We are also investing heavily in the sense that we have an agency which is totally focused on research and innovation, working very closely with the private sector in order to give different opportunities to our academics, and most importantly to our students, in order to ensure that they are exposed to the real life opportunities and real life challenges in order to ensure time is up already.
It's okay, you can continue.
Okay, so the fact that our ministry is not just the Ministry for Education, but has under its remit also research and innovation also is part of a wider view. We are currently working and we will be launching our vision, the Malta vision, which will take us to the year 2050, which might seem a long road ahead, but in reality, we have to ensure that our country is properly equipped, and definitely research and innovation have to be an integral part. We also believe that our universities and tertiary education areas need to be a hub for research. Our university has to be a hub where a wealth of knowledge is created. And that can only be done through proper research by our academics, research which is not just written in books, but which is able to do a difference in the society of Malta.
Right. Mr. Shermatov, I want to give the last question to you, since your niche is digital technologies. Do you think the education systems globally are keeping up with technological changes and new arising work demands? Just a global view, and what needs to change? Very quickly.
There are many challenges with all the new technologies, and some technologies are helping, some technologies are hurting. For instance, when we were educated, when I got my first calculator, I started to kind of I cannot calculate on my mind. Before having my first calculator, I could count on my mind all the calculations. But with the emergence of AI, kids are getting lazy. So they don't have to.
I agree.
They don't have to solve anything. They don't have to even make code anything. AI can help everything. So sometimes, what would be the outcome? Maybe they would be even dumber than the AI, be getting more and more intelligence. The kids are not well educated. So these kind of questions still are there. There are not clear answers to that, and we have. As education policy makers, we have to think about the future consequences. As I said, from my first time of having my first calculator, then my all calculation skills disappeared. What would be the next outcome for our kids when they start using AI from the beginning? So maybe they might be thinking of keeping up with that. But on the other hand, for the developing countries, where the main challenge is the lack of qualified teachers, because we have a demographic growth of population. For instance, in the case of Uzbekistan, we had the biggest growth among all former Soviet countries. In European countries, in other developed countries, you see the decline of population, you see the decline of birth rate. So the lack of teachers is not an issue. Whereas in the developing world, the lack of the qualified teachers is an issue. So here comes the AI, here comes the online education, here comes the access to all the technologies, which is benefiting the education. So there are many questions to be answered.
Thank you so much, and that's a great way to end our session. Your Excellencies, thank you very much for joining us and for this insightful panel. Thank you so much.